Well, after the amazing update from Riot Forge, where they revealed the release dates of 3 new games based on the League of Legends universe, with one of them being a brand new Mage Seeker game about Sylas escaping Demacia, which by the way, it was confirmed that that one is not a roguelike. They're watching us. But after all of that amazing stuff, a month after the last update, we got a new one regarding League of Legends. And so yet again, Meddler and Brightmoon came back. And I have to say, I love this new style of giving us updates. It is extremely transparent, but more importantly, it is way faster. They even told us the date they recorded this, which was on the 7th. So it only took them 10 days for this to be pushed out, and that's with all the PR stuff that's happening in the background. So great job on that front. Right at the beginning, they mentioned that they will talk about a lot of different topics, but they will not talk about balancing. Which absolutely makes sense. They recognize that there are a lot of other creators who can cover these changes a lot faster, including Frigg himself. Anyway, let's dive into what we learned. First of all, they confirmed the data breach. In case you don't know, the source code of League of Legends was stolen, and the people who stole it demanded money for it. And you know what was Riot's response to the threats? You can keep the spaghetti. I mean, at times, even Riot themselves doesn't understand the spaghetti code. Do you really think someone else can start their own league with this code? Anyway, the League of Legends production slowed down a bit because of that breach. But now they should be up and running again. Then they talked about new champions and updates to older champions. They confirmed that when it comes to new champions or visual updates, they change their focus every year. They confirmed that sometimes they lean heavier into new champions, and for example last year, yeah, that one wasn't that good when it comes to VGUs. Simply said, in the future they want to keep the quality of every champion up to par. And this includes even the really old ones. So they will be investing more into ASUs, which is basically reskinning old champions as if they were getting a legendary skin without changing any of their abilities. And I highly support that. If it means that Cho'Gath is gonna have more than 5 polygons eventually, that's all I can ask for. And right now they confirmed that the 2 next ASUs will be Lee Sin and Teemo. I mean, Lee Sin needs it a lot. And I mean a lot. Like, have you actually seen his animations from a bit closer? So a lot of people will be happy about that one. But the second ASU is Teemo. Obviously this makes sense because Teemo is one of the most popular champions for new players. And you don't want to scare them with PS2 graphics. Although I have to say that Teemo is aging somewhat fine after he got the new textures. But at the very least, I am looking forward to seeing his new running animations. After this, we got news that some people from the new Champions team got onto the Game Modes team, which is really awesome to hear. As a result, the new Game Modes and some of the older Game Modes will get to League faster. But that is gonna come at the cost of new champions. I totally think this is the right direction to go. In the past, I did advocate that new champions don't give new content to League. Literally 1 or 2 people get to play this new content every game. Everyone else is just playing what they have been playing for 10 years. In contrast, a new game mode is a new experience for everyone. So I really like the new direction League is going for. Next, we got news that champion pricing is getting updated. The pricing tiers will stay the same, but a lot of champions will be a lot cheaper. Mainly, more complex champions will stay more expensive, and the easier champions to play will become a lot cheaper, so that new players can pick them up early. This is great to hear, though it is interesting to see that apparently, according to the statistics, Yuumi is an easy champion to play. I mean, it kinda makes sense. Also, according to the statistics, players who find a champion they love early on are more likely to stick with the game. So it all makes sense now. Also, we have to mention that Jhin got his own pricing tier. But after that, they finally talk about the lore. So let's talk about what we learned.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they...
So anyway, that's what we learned. Jokes aside, they mentioned that at the start, Riot was only dealing with League. So back then, writing the lore for this universe was very easy. But then we got Legends of Runeterra and Arcane and all the future projects, and so writing stories for this universe became a lot more complex when you have different media focusing on different things of this universe. As a result of this, a lot of people didn't like the fact that a lot of different games have different versions of the canon story. For example, the canon of Arcane is a lot different from the canon of the core game. Victor especially has a really different storyline. And I have to say, in the past, I was definitely one of the people who called this out. Especially after Legends of Runeterra started going a bit crazy. Even though at times it was really awesome. But over time, I learned to accept the fact that we just have different versions of the canon story. Unless we're talking about time-traveling Cytheria, that one doesn't make sense. So now it's interesting to see that Riot realized that having different versions of the canon core universe is odd. And they realized the benefits of having everything united under one story. And apparently, that's the reason why League didn't get a story in half a year now. It seems like they are doing something in the background to tie all the stories together, but we don't know what it is yet. While hearing this is cool and it makes me confident that something is happening in the background, this update absolutely does not stop the bleeding. The way things are going right now, League's lore is still absolutely dying. People show less and less interest in this universe because there are no updates. So whatever are Riot's plans, they better be quick about it. Because it is likely that by the time something is going to come out, people will absolutely move on. So Riot, please give us something soon. Anyway, after this, they mentioned a new dev blog about game modes. So let's dive into this one really quickly. Here, they gave us their 2 goals for the entire game modes team. First of all, they want to give League novel gameplay besides just the core League experience, but they also want to bring up new ways to play League's unique champions. Both of these sound amazing, and later in the post, they nail it. First, they talk about ARAM. They mentioned that they got some really positive feedback when it comes to ARAM. It seems like the frost gates are really good and people really like them. When it comes to the new balancing, people also got to appreciate that one. So expect more ARAM-specific balancing in the future. However, on the other side, Tower Rubble is something the players didn't really like. So in a future patch, they will be either scaling it down heavily, or they will just straight up remove it. That one will depend on some future testing. And after this, they dive into the 2v2v2v2. A brand new game mode that is finally gonna give the casual players something to play, just for fun. The main ideas of this game mode is to get players quickly into combat, push champion customization beyond just items, more on that in just a second, and minimize time in an already lost game. At first, I was a bit skeptical about this game mode, because when it comes to 2v2v2v2, it still sounds like something that would be competitive. And that's not really what the casual audience is looking for. But it turns out, the devs are a bunch of geniuses. Because they gave us exactly what we were looking for. Wacky fun. They gave us augments! Just like in TFT. That's right, between the combat rounds you get to pick a random upgrade. But sometimes these upgrades are champion specific. For example, when it comes to Silas, he will cast Lyssandra's W every 5 seconds. Echo can become a ranged carry with 500 attack range. And Kai'Sa can get suicidal tendencies because she explodes when she dies. Can you imagine the dives with her ultimate? All of these sound really powerful, and that's very good. Because if everyone is ridiculously overpowered, all that gives you is wacky fun. If everything is overpowered, no one's gonna care about who's actually better, everyone will just want to have fun. And if Riot pulls this one off successfully, it sounds like this is exactly what we need. I'm starting to get very confident about this game mode. And at this point, I can't wait to see what they come up with in the future. Speaking of which, they also mentioned that in the future they will also support the older game modes. Unsurprisingly, they are talking about Earth, All Random Earth, Ultimate Spellbook and One for All. These should start quickly rotating in the second half of the year. And lastly, they promised the re-release of Nexus Blitz. I feel like this one is really important because we need a secondary map besides just Summoner's Rift. And sometime in the future, it is gonna come back. Next, they talked about some cosmetic updates to League. First of all, because Wild Rift is so awesome, some of the art Wild Rift has will be ported over to League of Legends. In case you don't know, Wild Rift has a lot of high quality splash art, which is also animated. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, just know that some of the splash art in League will get better because of Wild Rift. And the first one to test the grounds will be Rugged Garen. But more importantly, you win, people. Even though some people could not comprehend that League and Wild Rift are two different games made by different people, and therefore you can't just port a skin over because it is two different engines, Riot said, fine, we'll dig through the spaghetti and try to make it work. And so, they are currently trying to import Wild Rift skins over to PC. And the first ones to test the ground will be Star Guardian Seraphine, as well as Redeemed Rakan and Xayah. Just remember that the actual models of the skin are lower resolution in Wild Rift than PC, which means that Riot has to retexture all the skins, if not, update their models. So again, it is not as simple as you might think. In fact, lowering the textures and the poly count is way easier the other way, that's why getting PC into Wild Rift is a lot easier. Anyway, next, because of the breach that happened with the source code, the next clash was delayed to March. And that clash will also be the first one to be in the South Asian servers. Also, apparently, the ARAM clash was such a big success, it's coming back. We just don't know when. Next, they also mentioned that they are upgrading the server capacities, which mainly means that there will be better login queues. There should also be lower ping for the South Asian servers, because they are starting up new servers closer to where the players actually are, and they are upgrading the server tech for Europe Northeast and Korea. But we don't really know what that one is gonna do. And that's it for this update. Overall, looking at everything that's happening, it seems like Riot is actually trying to address the casual audience, which has been neglected for so long. And ironically, it is the casual audience that is carrying the overall game. So if you look at everything that was said here, it looks like one big W-shaped update to me. Although League's lore is still being kept in the dust, so I really have to look for breadcrumbs if I want to cover any potential lore. Oh! What about that one?